It is a Tuesday evening in November 1974. The set in the corner has been on for half a minute, and the picture is still coming up out of the middle of the glass, a grey smudge widening into a face. There is a fire behind you and a draft under the door, and the window has gone dark since you came in from school. We lived that decade at exactly the right age for noticing everything, which is why none of it has ever properly left us. The bikes we wanted and the programs we all watched on the same night. What was delivered to the door and what got taken away without anybody asking us first. 30 of them. 30 things that were simply how it was if you were British and you were young in the 1970s. We will take them one at a time, and we will finish each one properly, because what happened to them afterwards is half the story. Number 1. The Raleigh Chopper. You changed gear with your hand down between your knees. That is the part nobody warns you about now, and it was the part that made it. A stubby lever on a console bolted to the frame, right there where a lever had no business being, and the whole bike was built around the idea that a boy would rather look like he was riding a motorbike than actually get anywhere. Raleigh of Nottingham put it on sale in 1969. Small wheel at the front, big one at the back, high-rise handlebars, and that long padded seat with the backrest that was meant for one and carried two. The Mark II came in 1972 with a T-bar shifter in place of the round knob. It was heavy, it steered like a wheelbarrow, and it was the only thing on the Christmas list that counted. If you got one, you knew the moment you saw the shape of the parcel, because there was no disguising it. It sold more than 1.5 million, and it kept Raleigh alive through a decade that shut a great many British factories. Then the BMX came over from America, light and cheap and built for jumping, and the Chopper was out of the catalogues by the middle of the 80s. The Grifter, which arrived in 1976 for the ones who wanted knobbly tyres, went the same way. The bike got you to wherever the rest of the day was going to happen, and the rest of the day was nobody's business but yours. Number 2. Out until it went dark. It is 9:30 in June, and the streetlights have just come on along the whole road at once. Somewhere 3 gardens away, a mother is shouting a name, and it is not yours yet. Breakfast was the last time anybody saw you. There was no telephone in most houses, and the ones that had one kept it in the cold hall on a table by the stairs, so there was no way of finding you and no expectation of it. You went. The rule was the lights or your mother's voice, whichever came first, and everybody's mother had a different range. Where you went depended on where you lived. The wreck, the canal path, the building site with the plank across the trench, the field behind the estate that got built on in 1978. You came back for your tea, and then you went again. Cuts got washed under the tap. Nobody drew up a plan, and nobody was collected. We are not going to tell you what that says about how children are raised now, because you have already thought it, and it is yours to think. We will only say that the sound of a whole road's worth of children being called in, one name at a time, 5 minutes apart, is a sound this country has stopped making. What called you in on some nights was not your mother at all. It was what was starting on the television. Number 3. 3 channels and no more. There was a dial on the front with more positions on it than there were things to watch. You turned it past the dead ones and it clunked, and you arrived back where you started. BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. That was the whole of British television until Channel 4 arrived in 1982. Colour reached BBC One and ITV in November 1969, though the set in the corner was very often rented, from radio rentals or the shop on the parade, and very often still black and white. Colour only overtook it later in the decade. What that meant was this: whatever was on, we were all watching it. Every one of us, in every house on the road, at the same moment. Which is why the playground the next morning worked the way it did, and why you could walk into any classroom in Britain and finish somebody else's sentence from the night before. One of those three was about to hold the entire country still for 45 minutes on a Thursday. Number 4. The night the lights went out. 7:20 on a Tuesday in February 1972, and the house went black between one word and the next. The miners had come out on the 9th of January. By the 9th of February, there was a state of emergency, and the Central Electricity Generating Board was cutting supply on a rota between 7 in the morning and midnight. Some households lost it for as much as 9 hours a day. It was printed in the local paper so that you could look up your own streets and your own hours. And people did, and cut it out and pinned it to the back of the kitchen door. There was a drawer by the sink. In it were candles, a box of matches, and a torch with a flat battery that nobody had got round to replacing. That is where they lived. Homework at the kitchen table by candlelight. The shop on the corner serving by paraffin lamp with the till drawer standing open because the till would not work. The immersion off. Your mother carrying a saucer with a candle stuck to it in a pool of its own wax, going up the stairs, and the shadow of the banister travelling round the wall as she climbed. For a child it was, for the first fortnight, tremendous. When it came back on, the first thing you noticed was the noise of the house starting again. When it went off, the first thing you noticed was the smell. Number 5. A quarter of sweets. The smell hit you at the door before your eyes had adjusted. Sugar and newsprint and the paraffin heater going in the corner. Behind the counter, the jars, big glass ones with the screw lids, up on a shelf you could not reach. And the woman took them down one at a time and tipped them towards the scoop. Rhubarb and custard, pear drops, sherbet lemons, midget gems, cola cubes, aniseed balls that went through 3 colours before they gave up anything at all. A quarter meant a quarter of a pound, and it was weighed out in front of you, which is the part that has gone. The needle swinging past and settling back, her hand going into the jar for one more to make the weight, and you watching that hand as though your life depended on it. Then the white paper bag, twisted at both corners, warm from her fingers. That same paper bag turned up in a shop where the change came back with something stuck to it. Number 6. Green Shield stamps. You could taste them for an hour afterwards. That flat, sweetish, papery gum. And by the 3rd page, your tongue had gone numb and you were licking with the side of it. Richard Tompkins brought the idea back from America and started the scheme here in 1958. 1 stamp for every 6pence spent. The grocer gave them out, the supermarket gave them out, and the petrol station gave them out, and they came off the roll in a strip with that ripping sound. Then the books. Pages of them, filled and flattened and kept in the sideboard drawer with a rubber band round the lot. And the catalogue. Every household had one, and every household had a page turned down. A hostess trolley. The transistor radio. A carriage clock that nobody needed and everybody wanted. Your mother knew exactly how many books stood between her and it, and she said the number out loud sometimes, the way you would say a distance. It ended because the shops changed their minds. The customer worked out that she was paying for the gift in the price, and the supermarkets worked out that they would rather cut the price instead. Tesco pulled out of the scheme in 1977. The catalogue shops had already been rebranded as Argos in 1973, and Argos is still on the high street, which means the thing that finished off the stamps was built out of the stamps. Not everything that came into the house arrived on a stamp. Some of it arrived by bouncing. Number 7. The space hopper. There was a noise it made on a pavement, and there has never been another one like it. A dull rubber slap, then a squeak of the handles, then a slap. Metoy brought it to Britain in 1969. The first ones were blue. The orange one with the black horns and the grinning face came afterwards, and that is the one everybody remembers having, whether they had one or not. You will see it dated to 1971 in a lot of places. Newspaper advertising from November 1969 is already calling it a trend, so it was here earlier than the story usually allows. And those of us who had one in the 60s have been quietly right all along. It did not get you anywhere faster than walking. That was never the point of it. The other thing that arrived in a box that decade did not bounce. It came with a sachet of dried noodles. Number 8. A curry in a box. They went into the pan flat and hard, like something you would find in a shed, and then they moved. Curled, swelled, turned pale gold, all of it in seconds. And if you looked away, they were black. Bachelors launched Vesta in 1961, using a freeze-drying process developed with Unilever, and by the 70s, it was the closest most British kitchens had ever come to foreign food. Beef curry with the sultanas in it. Chow mein with the crispy noodles you did yourself in the pan. Paella, which came out orange. 20 minutes from the packet to the table, and it said so on the box. We know how it looked. We know roughly what it was. But you have to remember what it sat next to on the shelf, which was a tin, and what it replaced on the plate, which was Tuesday. A family who had never held a passport ate something that week with a foreign name on it, and then talked about it. If the house had a telephone at all, it lived in the hall, and it was freezing. Most of us used the one on the corner. Number 9. The box at the corner. You went in shoulder first because the door was heavier than a child and it shut behind you with a sound like a full stop. Sir Giles Gilbert Scott designed the shape. The General Post Office put around 60,000 of the K6 across the country, and there was one at the end of very nearly every road. The directory hanging on its little shelf with half the pages gone. The mirror. The card in the frame telling you what to do. And a smell we are not going to describe to you because you have it already. You needed the right change in your hand before you started. Then the pips when the money ran down and the scramble that followed. In the older boxes there was button A to be heard and button B to get your money back, and no child in Britain walked past one without going in and pressing button B on the chance that somebody had left in a hurry. It worked often enough to be worth doing. British Telecom began taking them out in the middle of the 80s. The coins in your hand that year were not the coins your mother had grown up with. Number 10. New money. Hold a half crown now and your hand knows what it is before your head does. Heavy, wide, worth 2 and 6. Decimal day was Monday the 15th of February 1971, and it had been coming for years. The 5 and 10 new pence had been in circulation since 1968, made exactly the size of the shilling and the florin so that nobody would jump. The Decimal Currency Board ran a campaign on the wireless and on the television. There were conversion cards in every kitchen drawer, little cardboard slides that turned 1 and 6 into 7.5p. On the day itself, the shops managed. What did not manage was the language. New pence and new p were both in live use, and both were correct. And half the country carried on in bob and tanners for another decade, because that was the money their mouths already knew. The sixpence stayed legal tender as 2.5 new pence until the middle of 1980. What everybody said at the time was that prices went up in the change. Your mother said it in the queue, and your father said it at the table, and it was said with total certainty. We are only going to report to you that it was said, because that is what we can honestly tell you. Whatever the money was called, the sound that emptied a road was the same one it had always been. Number 11. The chimes in the street. You heard it through a closed window 2 roads away, and the whole room stopped. Then came the arithmetic. How far off he was, which way he was heading, whether there was anything in the jar on the mantelpiece, and whether your mother would say yes, and all of it had to be worked out at a run because he did not wait for anybody. Mr. Whippy started in 1958, and Walls bought the name in 1966, and at the peak there were tens of thousands of vans working British roads. The window slid back. The soft serve came down out of the machine in that turning coil. A 99 had the flake pushed in at an angle, and the raspberry sauce went down the side and onto your fingers before you had got as far as your own gate. The chimes were brought under a code of practice at the start of the 80s, with rules on when they could sound, for how long, and how often. There are a small fraction as many vans now. The other sound that stopped a road that decade came out of the television on a Thursday, once a week. Number 12. Thursday night, BBC One. 7 o'clock, and the room got sorted out. Somebody was sent to fetch somebody. Somebody else was told to sit down and be quiet, and an argument about the chair was settled by whoever was biggest. Top of the Pops pulled around 15 million viewers a week through that decade. In 1979, when ITV was off the air, it reached about 19 million. In a country of that size, that is very nearly everybody. It was the whole nation in one room at the same moment, once a week, and there has been nothing like it since. 30 minutes, the chart counting down, the studio audience shuffling about, looking as though they had been told where to stand, which they had. A band you had waited a fortnight to see and got 3 minutes of. Your sister knowing every word. Your father asking every single week whether that was a boy or a girl and enjoying asking it. Getting on it could move a record all by itself, and everyone in the business knew it, which is a story with its own shadows and not the one we are telling here. It ran as a weekly program until 2006. There is no longer a night when the whole country is in the same room. What went in the lunchbox the next morning had 2 biscuits and a layer of marshmallow, and it was bigger then, or so the story goes. Number 13. The wagon wheel. The wrapper came off in one piece if you did it properly, and what was underneath filled a child's palm completely. That is the memory. Filled it. They were launched at the Olympia Food Fair in London in 1948 and made at Slough. 2 Marie biscuits, a layer of marshmallow between them, chocolate coating over the lot. They were sold at the time as the biggest chocolate biscuit bar on the market, and they went in the lunchbox, in the picnic bag, in the glove box for the journey home. Now, everybody who was there remembers them being bigger than they are. The manufacturer has always denied it, firmly and repeatedly, and the counter-argument is that the hand holding it has grown a great deal more than the biscuit has shrunk. We are not going to settle that for you, because we cannot. We will only say that both sides have been saying the same thing for 40 years, and neither of them has moved an inch. The shop it came from shut at 1 o'clock on one afternoon a week, and everybody in the town knew which one. Number 14. Closed half day. Your hand on the door at 3:20, and the door not moving, and the blind down behind the glass. The Shops Act of 1950 required every shop to be shut for the serving of customers by 1 o'clock on one weekday in every week. The local council fixed which one. That is why it was Wednesday in your town and Thursday in the next town along, and why the butcher could be shut on a different afternoon from the ironmonger 3 doors down from him. You were supposed to carry it in your head, and mostly you did, and when you did not, that was the afternoon gone. No bread, nothing to be done about it either, except walk home and be told off for not knowing. The Act was repealed at the end of 1994, and the phrase went with it. There are people under 40 who have never once found a shop shut when they wanted it open. One morning a week, though, belonged entirely to us, and no adult had any say in it. Number 15. Saturday morning. You were awake before anybody. That was the whole trick of it. Downstairs in a dressing gown at 20 to 9, the fire not lit yet, the room cold, a bowl held on your knees because the table was too far away from the set. Tiswas came first, the 5th of January 1974, and it only went out in the ATV region in the Midlands to begin with, so half the country has no memory of it at all until years later when the other companies picked it up. Custard, buckets of water, adults behaving in a way that adults did not behave anywhere else in British life. Then multicoloured Swap Shop. The 2nd of October 1976 on BBC One. 3 hours of it, live and national from the very first morning. A telephone number read out on the air. Children ringing in from Carlisle and Plymouth to swap a bicycle pump for a scale-electric transformer with a stranger. Nobody thought this was odd, and it was the single most exciting idea anybody had ever had. Whichever one you chose said something about you. It was not negotiable, and the argument has never entirely been settled. Households were divided. Some of them still are. 2 winters before that, the whole country had been told how many days a week it was allowed to work. Number 16. 3 days a week. January 1974, a Tuesday, and your father was in the house. Not ill. At home at 10:30 in the morning, in a chair with the wireless on. From the 1st of January until the 7th of March, commercial users of electricity were limited to 3 specified days a week, and they were not allowed to work longer hours on those days to make it up. Television was ordered off the air at 10:30 at night to save power. Whole factories stood still. Offices worked in coats. What reached the house was simpler than any of that. Money got tighter without anybody explaining why. School was cold and stayed cold. The teacher kept her coat on, and so did you. And the ink took longer to come out of the cartridge pens. The drawer by the sink got opened again. By now, the candles had been moved to the front of it, next to the matches, because that is what happens to a thing you have needed twice. Homework at the kitchen table again. And this time, nobody in the house treated it as an adventure, including you. We are not going to tell you whose fault it was. Everybody who was there has a view. They have held it ever since. And that is not what this is for. There were sweets that year that came in a striped paper tube, and one of the flavors in it was never officially revealed to anybody. Number 17. Spangles, a rounded square. That was the shape, and your tongue found the dimple pressed into each face and worked at it until the whole thing went thin and sharp at the edges and cut you slightly. Mars made them from 1950. The striped paper tube. The 70s wrapper with the fat, bell-bottomed lettering that is now the only version anybody pictures. Old English for the aniseed and the licorice and the treacle in a black and purple tube, which made you feel about 40. And the mystery flavor with question marks printed on the wrapper. It was never officially revealed. It still has not been. Discontinued in 1984. Some things in that house were paid for a little at a time by a man who came on a Friday. Number 18. The man who called. There was a particular knock, and it came at a particular hour, and your mother knew which it was before she stood up. Not every house on the road had this. If yours did not, stay with us anyway, because the house 4 doors down almost certainly did, and nobody discussed it. The tallyman came weekly and collected on what had been bought on the check, which is how an enormous number of British families bought a winter coat, a bed, a pram, or a 3-piece suite. You paid more in the end. Everybody understood perfectly well that they were paying more in the end. What it bought was the thing arriving in March instead of never, a book on the shelf with the payments ticked off in biro, and the ability to look at that coat and know it was yours. The Crowther Committee reported on consumer credit in 1971, and the Consumer Credit Act followed in 1974. The weekly round faded away through the 80s. There was no shame in that book. There was a very great deal of management in it. What we listened to, while none of this ever got discussed, came in on a wavelength every one of us can still recite. Number 19. 247. You tuned it with your thumb, in the dark, by feel, moving a hair at a time until the hiss cleared and a voice came up out of it. Radio 1 took the medium wave frequency when the old light program split at the end of September 1967, and the number went straight into the jingles and stayed there for 11 years. 247. Sung, shouted, and jangled between the records until it was less a frequency than a piece of the furniture. The transistor under the pillow with the earpiece in. The signal drifting at night and coming back with a foreign station leaning against it. The chart on a Sunday tea time, finger on the button of a cassette recorder, praying that the disc jockey would stop talking before the first line. In November 1978, the frequencies were reorganized across the country, and Radio 1 moved to 275 and 285. The number everybody could recite stopped meaning anything, more or less overnight, and there was no ceremony about it at all. The next thing to be taken away came in a crate at about 10 past 10 in the morning, in a bottle the size of your hand. Number 20, the third of a pint. The crate came in and got put by the radiator, which was the worst place in the building for it, and by playtime it had gone warm and slightly thick at the top. In winter, it went the other way. Left outside on the step, frozen, the foil cap pushed up off the neck by a column of ice, and you drank the bit that had melted and left the rest of it standing there. A straw pushed through the foil. A third of a pint, every child, every morning, and the milk monitor going up and down the rows with the crate on his hip, like a man carrying scaffolding. Now, the story you have probably heard is that it all stopped at once in 1971. It did not. Secondary schools had lost it 3 years earlier, in 1968. The Act of 1971 removed it from children over 7, while the under 7s carried on with it, and a great many local authorities went on providing it out of their own budgets for years afterwards, which is why one of you remembers it stopping and the person sitting next to you remembers it carrying on. And you are both right. We are not going to name anybody over it. It became a name to shout in a playground, and it has stayed one for 50 years, and that argument belongs to somebody else. Something else was still coming to the door in a glass bottle, and on that one there was money back. Number 21. The pop lorry. Glass on wood, a whole load of it, shifting as he came round the corner. You could hear him long before you could see him, and it was a completely different sound from the milk. Thomas and Evans started bottling at Porth in the Rhondda, and Corona ended up working roads right across Britain out of dozens of depots. dandelion and burdock, cream soda, limeade, orangeade, cherryade, in thick glass bottles, with a stopper that went off like a small firework. There was money back on the empties. That was a child's income, that was, and a crate found behind a garage was a windfall. Every bubble has passed its physical, said the advertising, and we all repeated it because it was terrible and we loved it. The supermarkets finished the doorstep round. The Porth factory closed in 1987, and the building later became a recording studio, which is a better end than most of these stories get. The summer everybody still talks about was a couple of years off, and the ground was already hard. Number 22, the summer of 1976. The grass had gone. Not brown, gone. Back to a pale straw color with the soil showing through in cracks you could get 2 fingers into. And it stayed like that for weeks. 15 days running, from the 23rd of June to the 7th of July, somewhere in England reached 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The hottest day of all was the 3rd of July, and it was 96 at Cheltenham. We give you that in Fahrenheit because that is how it was reported and that is how it was lived, and putting it into anything else drains the number of everything it meant. Tar going soft at the edge of the road and coming up on your shoe. Ladybirds in numbers nobody had ever seen on the gateposts, in your hair. Hosepipe bans, a drought act passed at Westminster, and a minister appointed for the drought. 2 corrections, gently. The dry spell had started back in 1975, so this was the end of something rather than the whole of it. And the standpipe in the road with the queue and the bucket was not a national experience. That was South Wales and parts of the West Country, and if you were in Kent, you watched it on the news. For a child with 6 weeks off and nothing to do, it remains the best weather this country has ever produced. A year later, the same roads were full of tables, and for once, nobody minded the heat at all. Number 23, everything shut. A high street with nothing moving on it makes a particular sound, which is mostly wind and one dog. Sunday. The Shops Act kept the shutters down, with a short list of exemptions that made very little sense then and makes less now, so the newsagent could sell you a paper and the sweet shop could sell you a quarter, and the shop between the two of them could sell you nothing at all. The nations were not the same, and we should say so. The Act did not extend to Northern Ireland. Its Sunday provisions did not extend to Scotland, and observance in parts of Scotland and in parts of Wales went a very long way past anything the law required, in a way that a child in the English Midlands never saw. What we did instead was the roast, the washing up, the walk, the relatives arriving at 4, and that specific quality of Sunday boredom which has had no equivalent since. Sunday trading in England and Wales was not liberalised until 1994. What filled a Sunday afternoon in December had a hard cover and your name written inside the front of it. Number 24, the annual. It was the heavy one at the bottom of the pillowcase, and you knew what it was through the paper by the corners alone. Whizzer and Chips launched on the 18th of October 1969. 2 comics in one, it said, and you were either a whiz kid or a chipite. You did not switch, and you argued about it with real feeling. Whoopi arrived in 1974. Bunty and Jackie for your sister, Look In for the television, and 2000 AD from 1977 for the ones who wanted something with teeth in it. The weekly was the small pleasure. The book at Christmas was the large one. Hard covers, a smell of new print, and dated forward to the following year. So the one under the tree in 1972 said 1973 on the spine, and you had a whole year before you caught up with yourself. They ate each other through the 80s. Knockout went into Whizzer and Chips. Whizzer and Chips went into Buster, and Buster itself closed in January 2000. The light you read it by ran on a coin, and somebody always had to go and find one. Number 25. The meter. Under the stairs, behind the coats, with the ironing board leaning against it, and something at the back that had been there since you moved in. A shilling before decimalisation, and after it, the big 7-sided 50 pence. In it went, the dial clicked over, and the house had light again for a while. It ran out mid-program. That was its way. Everything died at once, somebody shouted, and there was a scramble along the mantelpiece and down the back of the settee for a coin in the dark, with the cupboard door open and the torch not working. The man came round to empty it, and sometimes there was money back, and that was a small event in the week. Not every house had one. If yours did, you have not forgotten the sound of it taking the coin. When the lights were on and the table was laid, the whole road sat down within 20 minutes of each other. Number 26. Tea at 5:30. Your name, shouted from a doorway, carrying about 3 houses in either direction, and then, a few minutes later, 4 other names from 4 other doorways. The road emptied at the same time every evening because everybody ate at the same time, in from wherever you were. Hands under the tap. Sit down. And what was on the plate depended entirely on what day it was, because the week had a shape then that it does not have now, and Monday was whatever was left of Sunday. Now, the word divides this country, and we are not going to pretend otherwise. Tea across most of the North and the Midlands. Dinner or supper elsewhere at a different hour, under a different name, with everybody quietly certain that their own household had it right. Nobody was eating at a different time from anybody else. There was one meal and one table, and if you were late, you heard about it. The winter that came next stopped the country, and it started with snow. Number 27. The cold winter. A road under deep snow makes no sound at all, and that is the thing people forget about it. No traffic. Nothing. The winter of 1978 into 1979 was the hardest in 16 years. Blizzards over the new year, districts cut off, drifts standing higher than a garden wall, and a January so cold it went into the record books on its own account. Across those same weeks, there were widespread disputes in a great many industries, and what reached the road was this: schools shut, petrol stations with nothing in the pumps, and a handwritten sign in the window, deliveries that stopped coming, bins that were not emptied week after week in the frost, and then a smell that arrived with the thaw. We are not going to tell you who to blame for it. Every single person listening already knows what they think. They have thought it for 47 years, and it is not our place to hand it back to them. The drawer by the sink came open again. The candles in it were the same candles, shorter than they had been in 1972, shorter again since 1974, standing there in the drawer like something you keep for a thing you know is going to happen again. Nobody in the house remarked on it. Your mother lit one, stood it on the saucer, and carried on with what she was doing. 2 years before that, the same road had been full of tables and bunting, and the weather had held all day. Number 28. The street party. They came out of the front doors at about 9 in the morning. Kitchen tables, card tables, a door off its hinges laid across 2 trestles, all of it carried out by men in shirt sleeves and lined up down the middle of the road, end to end. And a road with tables down the middle of it is not a road. anymore. The Queen lit a beacon at Windsor on the evening of the 6th of June 1977, and a chain of them went up across the country. The next day, the procession went to St. Paul's. The crowds along the route were enormous, and it went out live to something like half the world. But the day itself happened where you were standing. In London alone, about 4,000 parties were reported, and there were tens of thousands more up and down the country. Bunting strung from one bedroom window to another. Sandwiches under tea towels. Jelly. A mug with the date on it that is still in somebody's cupboard tonight. Fancy dress judged by a woman from number 12 who took it extremely seriously. Whatever anybody thought about anything else that year, and there was plenty being thought, the road turned out. Everybody, including the ones who did not speak. The same trestle tables came out again in August, only that time they were standing on a promenade a long way from home. Number 29. A fortnight away. The case came down off the top of the wardrobe about a week beforehand, and it smelled of the top of the wardrobe, and it lay open on the bed, getting fuller. The works fortnight. The wakes week. The factory shut. The machines got their maintenance, and the whole town went at the same time, which meant you went on holiday with the same families every year because they were on the same fortnight as you. In the north of England and in Scotland, that was still holding right through the 70s. By 1975, most workers in Britain had 2 weeks or more of paid holiday, and this is what they spent it on. The boarding house and its rules, chief of which was that you were out between 10 and 5, whatever the sky was doing. The landlady, the caravan at the coast, the camp with the redcoats and the tannoy going all day long, rain running down the glass of a shelter on the front, 4 of you sitting in it, and nobody suggesting going home. Then the flights got cheap. By the end of the decade, the money was going abroad. The boarding houses were taking fewer bookings, and the camps began closing through the 80s, one at a time. Go to those towns now. The promenade is still there. It is the fortnight that has gone. And at the end of every single one of those days, wherever in Britain you happen to be, the same thing happened to the television. Number 30. The DOT on the screen. By then the room had gone quiet, and it was mostly just you, one lamp, and somebody asleep in the other chair. It came in an order, and the order never changed. The programs for tomorrow read out slowly enough to write down. The weather. On some nights a public information film, which is why a generation of us are still careful around ponds. Then the announcer over the clock, wishing you good night and pointing you towards the wireless if you were not going up yet, and meaning it. Then the anthem. In Wales, it was Hen Vlad Fai Nadaw, and a family who had been arguing about the chair 4 hours earlier would sit there and let it finish, because you did. Then the picture fell in on itself, down to a white dot in the middle of the glass, holding for a second, and gone. The set ticking as it cooled, in a room that had gone darker than it was a moment before. Somebody got up and switched it off at the wall, because you did that as well, and the last thing in the house still capable of giving any light was in the drawer by the sink, where it had been all along. That drawer stayed like that for 10 years. Nobody decided it. Nobody had a conversation about keeping candles by the sink. They went in sometime around 1972 because the road went black on a Tuesday, and they came out again in the January of 1974 and again in the winter of 1979. In between, they simply sat there under the string and the fuse wire and the spare key to a door we had already moved away from. They never got used up. That is the part that stays with us. Not one of them ever burned all the way down, because it was always only a few hours, and then the fridge would shudder back on, and the light in the hall would come up, and somebody would blow it out, and put it back in the drawer for the next time. We were a country that kept candles in a drawer. Ready for it, the way you keep a coat by the door in a place where it rains. That was simply the arrangement, and we built a childhood underneath it out of comics and chimes and 3 channels. None of us thought we were living through anything at all. We were just living. It was a Tuesday. The lights would come back on. And they did.